Hey, what's up, guys? So it's been about a week or two since I said I was going to record a video and post it, and I'm finally getting around to it. Also, welcome everyone, all the new faces in Momentum. I love seeing new people in here and the server being crazy active. Because of that, I'm actually going to do a quick recap on how I trade. For people that are familiar with me that have been in the server for months now, you can just kind of skip forward. This is not going to be anything new. But once I cover kind of how I trade, the most basic way of how I look at charts, right? Not anything like quote unquote advanced, but just the most basic thing. I am going to cover what my thoughts are on the market moving forward, and kind of cover these three things up here, right? So in terms of how I trade, right? Let's get this out of the way. In terms of how I trade, what I like to do is I like to map my higher time frame SR levels, support resistance, and these levels form my ranges, right? So 84 to 107 is our current range that we're in, our high time frame range. 84 being the range low support, 107-ish being the high time frame resistance, range high, right? And then what I like to do is I like to break it down on a more lower time frame, where you have like 84 to 93, 94 being a range, then 94 to 98 to 100K being another range, et cetera, right? Now I've had these levels pre-marked on my chart since October. 93 is actually the yearly. And so this was another level that I had marked off over here before Bitcoin came down. So I've been bearish actually since October, and I provided 115K short entry with the thesis in the server, also shorted 107K, also shorted 93, which closed. But I've been bearish since October with a lot of reasoning. But pretty much how I trade, right, is it's super easy for me to validate and invalidate trades. Like, this is going to sound like no shit Sherlock, but all I do is literally long the range low and short the range high, right? The thing is, I'm very quick and open to being wrong with my plan, though, right? And what I mean is, if you look at like ETH, for example, where is my other ETH charts? Let's get rid of this for a second. If I look at ETH, right? So because of how I trade, right? And I've told people this all the time. Let's take this example here, right? So when ETH was at 2,900 and it was coming into resistance at 3040, I shorted this because it's proven resistance. But whenever you get an SR flip, you get the aggressive break over the level. You'll get the retest either to the level or forming a lower high. And then order flow objective is to take that asset to the next level. In this case, the next SR level range high at 3050, right? Then from there, you simply short all the way back down, right? It's very simple because basically what you're doing is you're trading the asset in ranges. And as soon as the asset flips a level, it is now trading within that range until proven otherwise, right? And so even here, for example, when ETH moved back down, I like the proper trades to long this, but it's quickly invalidated whenever it flips the SR. And usually you're looking for at least a 4-hour closure. And like I always specify whenever I post my trades, but usually I look for like 4, 6, 8-hour closures, kind of depends, sometimes daily closures. But regardless, break, flip the level, retest, and then order flow objective is of course to move down to here. And this is actually a trade I provided to VIP. We shorted here, TP'd here. The correct trade again was to long the range low back to the range high, but was on the golf course, didn't provide that. And then I did provide the short from the range high. This is at worst, you can actually like trail this to break even, which I said to do. And again, at worst, it's a scalp, and if invalidated, you can simply just long it to the next level, right? So you get the idea, right? I don't want this to be like a fucking hour video, but you get the idea. If you want more like in-depth explanations and stuff, just watch like any stream, and I talk more about how I trade and stuff. But anyways, in terms of Bitcoin, one other thing I will say actually is when I'm trading is I have my context in mind, right? So you have to understand that we're in this bigger range here, right? And so technically anything that happens in here is fair value. Fair value meaning that this is basically all chop, right? Think about it all as chop. Until Bitcoin closes weekly below here or above here, there's absolutely no shift out of this range, right? With that being said, everything that happens in here is also your more local fair value, right? So anything that happens in here is also pretty irrelevant unless the asset closed below 84 or above 93. And we saw that when it did close above 93, it moved to, it actually front ran 100.6, but it did take out this this OB here at 98, right? Let me get rid of this. Thank you. The only exceptions I have whenever I'm not going to trade the range lows or highs is when you do get something like this, which is, and I've talked about this before, I think either in the last stream or the stream before, in crypto, right, when you have this liquidity curve building up, you basically have people shorting here, 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 expecting the move down. You instead get the aggressive move up before punishing these lows, right? In TradFi, this does not happen. In TradFi, you would punish these lows first, take out the liquidity, and then get the move up, right? And so actually when Bitcoin was consolidating here, I had a long limit order for here because I was expecting this liquidity to get taken out before the move up. That didn't happen. And so instead, the only long of interest I had was here because I knew price would bounce before we get to the range low at 84, right? So yeah, and also this is also super evident for what I was talking about with ETH. You can see here, even on like the lower time frame, right? So you had the SR flip here, you had the retest, moved higher, came back down. What should have happened if you were going to stay in this range is you would have rejected here and then moved back higher. But instead, you got the flip back, the retest, and now order flow objective is to carry this out to back to 83, right? Doesn't matter if Bitcoin comes up to 90K. Doesn't even matter if it comes back up to 92, 93K. It's going to come back down to 83K at some point here. And actually, very likely it's going to be soon. This is actually not great for this long, but that's not what this video is about. So, context, right? Context. We are high time frame bearish. There is no denying that. And we are also mid time frame bearish, and we are also low time frame bearish, right? We're bearish across the board. But in terms, when I get a high time frame forecast, right, for people that are new here, I look at assets outside of crypto that move directly with crypto, right? So like coin, MSTR, mining stocks, et cetera, right? And whenever they have pivots all synced up, all pointing to corrections around a similar time frame, it's like plus one confluences are just stacking up, right? Now, for people that are also new here, I was expecting the move down to 76K in middle of January. We didn't get that though. So basically what I was looking for here, right, is you look at Bitcoin, you have tap 1, 2, 3, 4, slice through and pop back up. So I was looking for 1, 2, 3, 4, slice down and pop back up. We didn't get that yet, but what this is really reminding me of right now is you can see here, very reminiscent of this back here, right? Before obviously we got the expansion up, but we're not in a bull market anymore. So what is more likely to happen is we just chop, and then get the move down, right? If we look at the VIX, right, the VIX is suggesting we have a period of relief out to end of February, early March, and then that's where we get the first sell-off, right? We get another period of relief in the summer, like early summer, call it around June. We get another major sell-off in August, followed by another period of relief, followed by another major sell-off, which would be the last one before leading into the bear bottom in 2027, right? Somewhere around anywhere from, call it, March to June 2027 would be the bear bottom, right? Now, if we come back to Bitcoin, Right, we come back to Bitcoin. This is very similar to what like what I'm seeing in the VIX is very similar to what I'm seeing in Bitcoin. Yeah, so we have a low, another minor pivot due in late January, early February, and then we have the period of relief lasting until March, where we get the first major move down, and then we have another minor pivot due in June, with the bigger correction coming in August, right, which syncs up with the VIX, right, out here. And so, in my opinion, in terms of a plan, it's very probable that Bitcoin just continues to kind of chop about here in this range. Holy cow, I am lagging like a motherfucker. Just chop in this range, right? It wouldn't surprise me if Bitcoin comes back down, takes out this low one more time, then kind of flags back and chops back either to 93 or to 100K. It doesn't really matter. But ultimately, whenever the sell-off for risk on assets come in late March or late February to late March, we're going to get the slam down, right? That is the most probable thing that I'm seeing. So in my opinion, so this is the other thing too, right? And I've talked about this a lot before, where I don't want to see this 80K low get swept, because in my opinion, if price comes down this low to sweep the 80K low, it's very likely that price is just going to do this, right? It's going to retest, then move lower. And I say that because USDT, if there's any daily closure above 6.7, which would for sure come if Bitcoin sweeps the 80K low, there's any daily closure above 6.7, it is 100% confirmed that the next target would be 7.4 to 7.8. That is the order flow objective for this asset, right? And so that would, of course, bring Bitcoin down to sweep at least 76K, right? Now, in my opinion, I can see price doing one of two things when this happens. I can see price either sweeping just 76K and then bouncing, or coming a lot deeper and sweeping a lot of the liquidity and the demand over here before bouncing up. I don't think 72, 74 is going to get swept on the number, because I know a lot of people are calling for that, and it just doesn't make sense to me. It's either going to get front ran and we're just going to sweep 76, or we're going to come a lot deeper to high 60s. From there, right, so basically, the most probable thing, in my opinion, is we continue chopping here in this range. Most probable thing is to move down lower one more time to like 82 to 83K, and then chop back up. Doesn't matter if we come to 93. It doesn't matter if we come up to 100K. It doesn't even matter if we come up to 107K. It doesn't matter what price is, because in March or April, we will get the move down, sweep this low, chop back up for a period of relief, and then sometime in June, this is where I would be very, very cautious for the move lower, because this is most likely going to be the first very violent drop for risk on assets, in my opinion. This is very likely where we would see Bitcoin, say, if it sweeps the high 60s, chops back to low 80s, I can see Bitcoin very easily absolutely ripping through this and taking out all of the demand down here around 53 to 56K, right? So that is the plan, right? That is the plan for Bitcoin, right? Now, that is also, of course, the plan for every alt, because the thing with me is that I recognize that every alt moves with Bitcoin. And so if you look at Solana, for example, this is the easiest way I can show you guys this for people that are new here. Just like in Bitcoin, where you have your ranges, right? So remember, if we take 80K, we likely shift to range 2, meaning order flow objective is 74. Then if we take out 74 in August, order flow objective is, of course, to come down to 56. So if you look at Solana, it's right now pretty much in range 3. We'll get rid of this. It's in range 3. It's been chopping here for quite a while. whenever Bitcoin shifts to the next range, comes down to range 2, and I would even argue that Solana is now in range 2 after, let me see here, after this weekly close. I would argue that it is in range 2. Order flow objective is to now take out the range low around 74 to 85. There is some, I would call it internal demand. If you go on the lower time frame, 4 hour, 6 hour, and 8 hour here, there is some internal demand at 74. So what is most likely to happen on the higher time frame is you're going to have a wick down to 74 to 78, but you're going to have the actual candle close right around 84 to 88, right? That's, in my opinion, what's most likely, right? But my point being is that when Bitcoin moves down a range, so will Solana, and so will ETH, right? So actually, this is the, let me go to the other ETH charts. One moment. Go here, right? So whenever ETH, actually, actually, no, this chart would be better. My bad. 1 second. So whenever Bitcoin moves down a range, Sol moves down a range, so will ETH. It's currently stuck really just choppy chop trading in this more local range. It will move down. Most likely it will take out the Q first, so right around 2,500, and then we'll get some relief there. And then in August, where we get the major correction, it will likely take out support 1 right around 2,100. Now this is the thing, right? Because this video has been going on for 60 minutes now. This is all a plan, right? This is our plan, and this is what, in my opinion, is most probable. But that does not mean that we are going to trade based off a rough forecast, right? This is where actual execution comes into play. So if Bitcoin decides to chop down to here to 84K, does not bounce, and decides to take out the low at 80K, even though we are expecting a period of relief, right? Even though we're expecting a period of relief, it does not matter, because everything I'm basically showing you is confluence, right? It's not actual TA. I'm just identifying historical patterns and also tracking money flow, and none of that is an actual way to take a trade. It is a way to have confluence for a trade plan. But if price is telling you a different story, we are not going to trade these in isolation, right? So if Bitcoin decides to come down here and not bounce, take out this low in like 2 weeks, even though we're expecting relief, right? Well, it doesn't matter, because that's telling us that price is then going to do this, right? And so we're going to open a short and target 74. Does not matter if we're expecting relief, right? On the flip side, of course, if price decides to bounce off 84 and we are expecting relief, we're not going to be retarded and open a long and target 107K, right? We're not going to do that either, because that is not the proper trade. At most, I would target 100K, because that's where price has gone before. Which is another thing I will point out, is if we do get the plan that I'm thinking we get, price kind of chops down here, we bounce, we get the period of relief. If it is March and price decides to take out this high, and we're like, let's say the second week in March, I would be extremely cautious and start building a short ASAP. It's very, very unlikely that price moves much above 100K at this point. I'm not going to lie. But we have seen Bitcoin do this very late in phase, right? Very late in phase. And it would not surprise me if price decides to take out this high. But I would not then expect price to move higher. It's very unlikely this late in phase, right? Very, very unlikely with the context in mind. So do you guys understand what I'm saying, right? So quick recap if it's not clear, right? We have the context, right? We're high time frame, mid time frame bearish. We have the trade plan. We are going to basically chop here, likely move down once more to 82, 83K. Whether we first get 90K, 93K, it does not matter. Eventually we are going to come back down here to 83K. The plan is to continue to get relief and probably flag, right? So probably flag back a bit higher, right? Doesn't matter if we reject off of 93 or we chop back to 100K. It does not matter because we're eventually just going to get slammed back down to, I'm on trackpad by the way, that's why like my shit is so bad, but slam back down to either 76 or high 60s. Then we'll get the move out, right? That is the plan. In terms of actual execution and the trades I'm looking at for Bitcoin. And by the way, I do think that final move to 76K doesn't come until March or April, right? That would be the plan. In terms of actual execution, I'm in this long here. The only other long I'm interested in, get rid of these. The only other longs I'm interested in would be from the range low, right around 84. I will be using a very wide stop to avoid scam wicks all the way down below this low, and I will be targeting 93. If price decides to do this, right, then it's very easy. I will just cut the short, or sorry, I will cut the long and flip short. Enter on, remember what I talked about earlier in the video where when you get the SR flip, you always get the retest. I will just simply short back down to 74K. That is, of course, in confirmation with USDT closing daily above 6.7. So that's kind of my plan for Bitcoin. I'm not really interested in anything else. In terms of ETH, it's also something pretty similar. So right now I am in the short targeting. I will likely be taking a lot off of 2800, but I am going to still leave some for 2400 in case we do get that final move down lower. But if we do get the plan with Bitcoin, right, then this won't play out. Very likely ETH would just do this, right? So of course, short down to here, take some off, hedge it with a long, right? Hedge with a long all the way back to 33.50. So that's my plan for ETH. In terms of Solana, I'm not gonna lie, I'm not even touching it. It's just a piece of shit. In terms of my plan for Doge, because that's really the only other thing I like to trade. In terms of my plan for Doge, so you can see here, this was a fantastic short, by the way. I really wish that I didn't cancel my limit order. For people that have been in here for a long time, they already know, like, I had a limit order here when price came into the range high, and this would have been I would not have held this, but that would have been a crazy short. I actually talked about price rejecting here and likely testing the base of the impulse, which it has done. And you can see here, Doge is actually an incredibly weak coin. This is the other thing too I want to cover. So people love to talk about how weak ETH is, and I have to just tell you, if you think ETH is a weak coin, you are simply retarded. It is the strongest alt on the market right now, and that is the simple fact. It is trading massively, massively above its April low. And if we look at every other alt on the market, with the exception of Sol, every single other alt on the market is trading at or below its April low, right? So it is just a fact that ETH is the strongest alt on the market, and anyone that says otherwise is probably looking at the 5-minute chart. In terms of Doge, I would only be interested in a long off of the Q down here, back to the range high at 0.15. If price decides to come back and give me entry at 0.12, I will be shorting it back down to the Q. If price decides to do this, then I will 100% also be shorting on a retest back to the range low. This is actually a massive area down here, which I'm very excited for Doge to eventually hit, because I will likely be taking a long from here back to 0.15, which will be a massive move. This is a 70% move. So that is my game plan. I hope everything is pretty clear on this. I also hope that the people in here that are new found this useful. If you guys have any questions, like for the new guys, just ping me in chat. I'll do my best to answer. I kind of speed ran through this because this is targeted both at people that are brand new to the server and also people that have been watching me for like months. So I don't want to, rehash a bunch of shit that they already know. So yeah, that's kind of that's the game plan, and those are the actual trades I'm looking at. So if anyone has any questions, just ping me in chat.